When you're working a traditional 9 to 5 job, your boundaries are pretty much set for you. You know, the communication protocols, the contact hours. It's easier to stay within the scope of work because someone else has set that for you. However, when you venture into the freelance space, you're forced to set those boundaries for yourself, and things don't always start out on the right foot. Things aren't always so clear. And if you're not diligent about setting these boundaries, you run the risk of crashing and burning, and that is everything that we're trying to avoid. So today we're talking about how to set appropriate boundaries as a freelancer. Let's dive in. As a freelancer, your time is everything. It's costly, right? So it's imperative that you set clear client boundaries early on in your business. Trust me on this, it is critical for your success and sustainability. Now, think of boundaries as those road barriers that keep your car on the right path, keep you from swaying here or there. That's what we're setting up today. So the first boundary I suggest you set in place are your contact hours or your work hours. Now, I struggled with this like crazy when I first began as a freelancer. And I think it's mainly because I love to work either early mornings or very late into the evenings. I find that's when I'm the most productive. And at first, I didn't think that the time that I emailed back and forth or spoke with my clients really mattered. And working from home didn't necessarily help this either, right? The lines get blurred very quickly. But that's not sustainable all the time, especially when you have other obligations like children, caring for a parent, or whatever it may be, and let's be honest, you didn't enter into the freelance space to be at the beck and call of your clients, right? You could have stayed at your 9 to 5 for that stuff. And what ended up happening is that clients would come to expect answers in the evening or immediately because I was kind of strapped to my desk all the time. And that's when I realized that I needed to set boundaries around my working hours as well as many other things. So the first thing you want to nip in the bud is untimely client contact. So that means setting work hours and sticking to them, right? And let your clients know upfront what those hours are. So for me, I included my hours on my website, on my pricing and services guide. And actually, we'll leave a link in the description if you want to learn more about how to create a pricing and services guide or like a marketing one-pager. I show you my actual guide. And then again, when I onboard my clients, I believe it's also in my email signature. So that's at least 4 touch points where I'm letting my clients know when I'm available and when I'm not available. So I can't say that I stop working at 5 p.m. and then answer emails or phone calls or what have you at 9 p.m., right? No breaking your own rules. And I know that it can be tempting to work outside of your set hours as a freelancer, especially if you're working from home. But remember that you're setting these boundaries for a reason so that you don't burn out, so that you can show up in other areas of your life with energy or whatever it is for you. Now, I have seen some freelancers agree to work outside of their normal hours, but it tends to be only for either emergency situations or the clients really need something expedited and they charge extra for that time. Don't get it twisted. Now, you can include a provision about that in your contract if you choose, but I suggest, at least initially, sticking to your actual work hours. And if a client seems to have a lot of those emergency situations or they always need something right away, that's a red flag, and we'll talk about those in a separate video. The next boundary to set is your response time. We are all busy building our businesses and writing grants and doing research and just doing great work, right? That means that we're not always available to give a client an immediate response, unfortunately. If you can, that's great and it will be appreciated, but you're not required to drop all of your responsibilities to address their email immediately, right? That's pretty unreasonable. But it's up to you to set that boundary and let them know. So if you're busy with work and you can't respond at the moment and it's not an emergency, because let's be honest, it rarely is, 24 hours is, I would say, the standard to respond to an email. So tell them up front, and it could be in your contract or during onboarding, that they can expect to hear from you within 24 hours. Next, your method of contact. Clients should not be able to call or text you on your personal phone, unless that's what you prefer, or DM you on Snapchat or TikTok, whatever's out there nowadays. They also shouldn't be sending you personal friend requests on Facebook. Be crystal clear on how they can contact you and stick to those methods. If you can only be contacted by email or phone call and they send you a DM, don't respond unless it's to tell them to send their message via the appropriate means. Next, feedback. Now, feedback is great and much needed, but it's an area that you may need to get some boundaries around the process, because it can get tedious without it. I prefer giving clients a time limit on feedback. So you can estimate the project timeline and make sure that you do include your overall workload, and then give them a time limit. You can't wait around for 2 weeks for them to give you feedback on your work. That's unreasonable. And in my experience, without those clear guidelines around feedback expectations, what tends to happen is the client will take their sweet time with the feedback and then expect rushed results on the revisions from you. And we're not here to play that game. Set time limits and be clear with your client on feedback expectations. Now, I've said a lot about being clear with clients and letting them know upfront about this or that, but what happens when they don't adhere to your boundaries, or they keep overstepping, or they never pay on time? This is going to require a direct conversation from you, and just as a freelancer, it comes with the territory, and it can be difficult to have tough conversations, especially if you're someone who gets uncomfortable with confrontation. And if that's you, I want to share a quick word. I wish that I could say something so profound, so inspiring to you that you'll overcome that icky feeling that can come with confrontation, but I can't. I have a few tips, but ultimately it's just going to be hard. It's something that I do think it's easier with time, with some reframing and experience. And I don't want you to think that there's something wrong with you because you find it uncomfortable. I think it is uncomfortable, but as a freelancer and as a leader, which you are, you have to tackle these situations head on because you just won't grow without them. I think the first thing to understand is that confrontation isn't bad. That's what I mean by reframing how you think about it. It's not an argument where, you have to win this war, right? It's an opportunity. Think of it as an opportunity to lay everything on the table, to have a heart-to-heart, to read from the same sheet of music. There's a misunderstanding somewhere, and everyone needs to get clear. That's all it is. I find it best to prepare for the conversation by having an intention. So know what you want to communicate to your client, what you want them to know. Write it down on a sticky note in front of you if you have to. Create an outline of what you want to say. I think this is very helpful for helping you to remain confident during these conversations and really stay on track. Schedule the call. Be clear and honest about what they need to know regarding your boundaries. And 9 times out of 10, it's never as scary as we tend to make it in our minds, right? And afterward, if the client continues to ignore or overstep those boundaries, then it's probably time to cut the cord and move on. So to recap, setting boundaries as a freelancer is a non-negotiable. You will not have the flourishing business that I know you desire without them. You can start with setting parameters around your work hours, your response time to clients, contact methods, and feedback guidelines. Being clear and upfront about your boundaries is the best way to keep everyone on the same page. Last, tough conversations are part of the journey. They can seem scary at first, but with some reframing, time, and experience, it does get much easier. And you won't grow without them. So I hope this video was helpful for you as you consider some of the boundaries that you want to set in place as a freelancer. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button below so that you can stay in the loop with us on all things grant writing and freelancing as a grant writer. Also, hit that notification bell so that you can be made aware every time a new video drops. And thanks so much again, and we'll see you in the next video.